In this tutorial, I'd like to show you how to create some basic graphics and work with stock photography and incorporate that into your website. So this is part 2 of the tutorial where I talked about building this basic layout that has a responsive menu. You can see when the browser gets smaller, the little icon pops up right here. Also, it has one column. This is where I'm going to put a photo, and then up here it has a header. That's where I'm going to put an image. So let's talk a little bit about beginning to work in Photoshop. Now at this point, with the class you're taking, beginning web design, you're not required to use Photoshop. And what I'm showing you, you don't have to go out and try to get Photoshop and do this. This is more for your information if you have it, and also in the future you will be working with graphics, obviously, so you'll get into it at some point. But as you begin to design sites, like this, at some point you're going to say, well, I have to put some graphics in and make the site look a little bit better. And yeah, you can do that with CSS and photography to a certain degree, but you do have to create your own graphics and modify photos at some point. There's just no way around it. And a typical program to use would be Photoshop because it's included with the Creative Cloud. Now, there are other programs out there now. There's one called Sketch that a lot of people use. I think you can download a free trial of that. But I'm going with Photoshop because I do have the Creative Cloud, and they do have an awesome educational price on that. I think it's $19.99 a month. Gives you access to every single one of their programs. So if you're in this field and you are working and learning the programs, it's a good bargain. It gets a lot more expensive if you're not in school, but it's something to consider if you don't already have that. So the first thing I'll do is start out with a header, and then I'll open up a photo. So this is the site from the previous tutorial, and we'll start with the header image. I'm going to go over here to Photoshop, and I clicked on Create New on the left-hand side. And there are some presets here that you can start with. Now, you do have a couple choices when you are designing graphics for your site. You could create a large canvas and sort of treat it as a mock-up, and design each area of the site, and then take smaller pieces of that and export it. So it's basically like a mock-up, looks something like this one right here that you see. But what we're going to do, I think, just for simplicity, is just create the graphics individually and put those into our site. So we'll start out with one of the presets here. We'll start out with a web minimum, a smaller one, so that it's easier for me to demonstrate, but they do have some of these presets right here. And then over here on the right hand side, you can leave everything the same, except I'd probably uncheck artboards for this because we are just creating one simple graphic. So click create and let this open up here. And now what I'm going to do is, let me zoom in so you can see it a little better. And actually I'll just do fit on screen under view. And I'm now going to simulate the header section of this so that I can design the graphic with that background color in mind as I'm designing it. So I have to determine what color that is, and I'm actually talking about this color right up here underneath the header text. And all I have to do is look here in the CSS.header, and here's the background color, hashtag F1 F1 F1. So now back in Photoshop, what I'll do is just take my rectangle tool and go over here to the color and set that same color, and then I'll draw a rectangle on here, and then that's where I can design my header so that the color matches up. So let me double click this, and again look for the hexadecimal to put on here right there, F1 F1 F1, and click OK. Alright, and then let me just draw a rectangle up here that kind of represent the header area. Looks just like that. And now this is the area I want to go ahead and design my header. So I'm going to use just my name, and then I'm creating a site for my instructional design portfolio. So that's what I'll put. I'll go ahead and use the text tool, and I'll choose something here. Now you can download, if you do have access to the Adobe Creative Cloud, a subscription, you do have access to Adobe Typekit, so you can get fonts that way. For this demonstration, I'm just going to use something fairly simple. Let me scroll down here. I'll use Calibri, kind of a nice simple font. Alright, I'll go ahead and click to add in some text right here, and I'm just going to say my name. And I might change the way this looks here in just a second. Alright, so here's what this looks like. It's too large, so let me click the text tool, and you got some controls up here. Toggle the character palette. Alright, so let me change the color on this one. I'm going to use sort of a dark blue color theme here. Alright, and then let me adjust a few other things. Alright, adjusted the character spacing, and I don't like the font very well. I think I will switch that. I'll just switch this one to the next one that comes up. Kind of like that look a little bit better, and might need to be a little bit larger as well. So let me type in maybe 100 for the font size. Alright, we'll just see what that looks like. Alright, underneath that I'm going to type in instructional design, and I'll make it all caps. And I do want a different color for this, and it obviously needs to be a lot smaller. It's going to fit in right underneath that, something like that, maybe a little bit smaller still. And then I will also adjust the spacing on this so that it sort of fits a little better. Okay, let's say maybe for this demonstration that's close enough, and I'm going to use a different color, maybe something that stands out quite a bit. I'll just use a red to see what that looks like. Let's see. Maybe not quite that bright. Alright, so that is what it looks like so far. I'm going to adjust the spacing a little bit more here, maybe 190. So that's a very simple sort of step-by-step for creating a little title header for your site. And then this is going to be exported as a GIF and inserted into the site. And before I export this, I actually want to save the PSD file. I should have done that first, but I forgot, so I'll just do a file save right now. And navigate to the portfolio site if you're following along with this. And then this is where the original images folder comes in. This is a folder where you're going to save files like the PSD. So I would call this like mockup or header, something like that. Okay, so that means I can come back and work on it because it may not be exactly what I want in my website. Once I get it in there and look at it, so I'll click save. And now what I want to go ahead and do is export just this title area, and you have a couple of different options for doing that. You can crop it and export it that way, or you can slice it and export. There's a slice tool right here, and then crop tool is underneath that as well. Okay, so I'll just use the crop tool right here that's listed with the slice tools. And I'm going to crop this, but it might try to be smart and crop it right on your title. So you might want to go a little bit larger here. I'm just going to give a little space around it. Maybe bring it in a little closer to this side on the left. Now this is going to try to snap. You could turn that off if you don't want it. And I think that'll be good enough here for this. So I'm going to click return. So I've cropped it. So that's what it looks like. Now you do have two choices here. You could export this with a transparent background. But since we used the same color background with a hexadecimal code, then you can export it as a GIF file and it retains that color. You can't export it as a JPEG and have it retain hexadecimal colors. So keep that in mind if you are ever exporting files with colors in them and you need the colors to match exactly. So export, actually I'll do, for this one, I'll do save for web, the legacy right now. Okay, so I'll do file, export, save for web. You could also do quick export as PNG, but I want to talk a little bit about optimizing files here. So I want to choose right here the GIF, make sure that's chosen. You can adjust the number of colors you have, but it's usually going to do that automatically for you. You can see it's 33 colors in there. You might say, why so many colors? It's because of the anti-aliasing that blends in the text to the background so that the lines don't look too jagged, so it's a little smoother look to it. Alright, so that looks fine. It's 397 by 140. You might want to make a note of that for the width and height in the HTML. And I'll go ahead and click save. Navigate to my portfolio site and then choose images here, and I'll leave it header.gif and click save. And that pretty much completes the header image, and I'll go ahead and insert that into the website and see how it looks now. So I'll come back here to brackets and also get my website open, and on the HTML file what I want to do is where it says the H1 header, I actually just want to go ahead and sub out the image tag for that. So img src equals, in quotes, images/header, and then that'll be it. Now you would want to put in your width and height on there, but just for the interest of time, I'll go ahead and save over here and refresh. And so you can see that it might be a little large, but it does a lot to improve the look of the website here. Now the menu did jump up here because I took off that header tag, so I may want to put some spaces in there to drop that down. Break. Okay, and looks like the line break took that back down where it was. I think I might have liked the menu better up here in the header, but for this demonstration we'll just leave it the way it is. One more thing to do here to finish out the design for this home page, we want to use an image, kind of like a full screen image here in this area. So if you look at my folder, I just went to unsplash.com and I downloaded a computer image right here. It's too large, but I'm going to resize that and change it a little bit and then put it into my website. So notice it's in the original images folder. I keep it separate because that's like stock photography. It's 2.8 megabytes. It's too large. So I'll go ahead and right click on computer. I'll do an open with, and I'll just use my Photoshop CC 2019 here. And you can see it is way too large. It's displaying at 12.5% right here. So first thing I want to do is go ahead and downsize it. So I'm going to go to image and image size. And resolution is fine, but let's make it something a little bit, it'll fit in a little bit better into the website. So let's do a 1500 by 1000. Click OK. And let me zoom in on this so you can see it a little bit better. And then I'll go ahead and add a few things to this. Let me grab the rectangle tool and let me just switch the colors here. I'm going to use black. I'm going to draw a rectangle across it just like that. But I'm going to drop the opacity down by clicking on it right here. Okay, so it's going to give me that kind of look right there. And I'm going to put in some text right there. That's just going to kind of highlight the text. So I'll click the text tool and I'm going to click in some keywords. I'll say e-learning, and I'm going to say Adobe Captivate, and we'll say Storyline 360. These are e-learning tools. And then maybe over here on the right hand side, alright, so that's what my image looks like with just a few things edited, resized. Now I'm going to go ahead and export this. So I'm going to do a file, export, and I'm going to do save for web again. And this time I want to make sure it's a JPEG. It might have defaulted to GIF. Okay, so I'm going to say JPEG. Alright, you can choose the quality here. I'm going to leave it at JPEG high. It tells me that's going to be 193K right here. It's 1500 by 1000. I'm going to go ahead and click save. And again, make sure you're in your images folder. Save it as computer.jpg. Alright, now let's see where we are when we go back and check this out, put it in the website. Again, I'm going to leave off the width and height just for time constraints, but I will go ahead and put in the scalable image, the responsive image here in just a second. So instead of having this this H2 that says column and then the paragraph, I'm going to get rid of that whole entire section, and I'm going to type in the img src again equals, and we're looking for computer. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and click File, Save, refresh on that. That's what it looks like. So it's starting to look like a website now, and has a lot more graphics to it. You know, has a nice little menu right here. Still responsive except for the main image right here. So it's going to produce some side-to-side scrolling unless I change that to be a responsive image. So that'll probably be the last thing I'll do. Now, as far as making just one image responsive, which is what I want to do here, you'd have to apply a class to it. So I'll show you what that looks like, and by that what I mean is you wouldn't want every single image to be responsive. Like, you may not want this to resize because that's already pretty small, and if someone looks at it on a smaller screen, you might want this to stay the same size, but then you want this one to be a little bit smaller. So if I want to put that code in, here's the site at W3 Schools that's how to create a responsive image using class right here. So this would be the CSS for that, and then you add class equals responsive to the end of your IMG code. And then I'll show you a few other things that I'd probably do with the design, and then I'll wrap up this tutorial because it is getting kind of long. So let me just drop this in here up at the top where we can see it. So responsive, I'm going to start with 100%. Now I might increase the size of that just because of the width and height of that image is pretty large. So I may want to display more than what 100% shows me. So I'll try that in a minute. So now let me go to my HTML, and for that image, looks like it's right here, computer, we want to add in class equals responsive, just like that. So let's do a file save all, back here and refresh. Alright, and that actually works pretty good. The height is auto there, so it fits in a little better. So that really pretty much completes the website. So what we have here is pretty much 100% responsive website. That's always going to be the most important thing for you, I think, when you're designing that, and then usability and simplicity with your design. When you go smaller, here's your responsive menu. The header image stays the same. So what I'd probably do with this is, I think the image is a little bit high because you get a little bit of unwanted scrolling here that you may not need. So I'd probably crop this image, make it a little more of a widescreen look, and then this I think is a little large. My title is a little bit large. I'd probably experiment more with changing around the design of the image some. Maybe change the screen and put in more keywords just to make it a little more custom. And then I think the menu looks fine, but I'd add in the rollovers, things like that. So anyway, that's going to be it for the series of tutorials on developing a responsive website and including some more graphics to improve the look of the website.